The Constitution. What is the difference between a democracy and a republic? To begin with, we have to first answer the question, what is the purpose of government? We know that people argue about that all the time. Some people think the government should do a lot of things and be involved in our life in many ways. Other people think it should do almost nothing. But according to the preamble of the Constitution, which is the very beginning part after it says we the people, there are 5 goals that the Constitution says of what the government should accomplish. First, it should establish justice. Secondly, it should ensure domestic tranquility. The word tranquility means peace. Domestic means at home, so we're talking about peace at home, so we have police, things like that. Thirdly, it should provide for the common defense, which is why we have a military. Fourth, promote the general welfare. And fifth, secure liberty. Another word for liberty is freedom. One of the main ideas that our government was founded upon is the idea of popular sovereignty. Now, the word sovereignty by itself basically means that you have the right to rule, that you have the power or the authority. The word popular in this sense is talking about people. So what this word really means is that people are the source of power. In other words, the government, they get their power from us. We give Barack Obama or whoever the president is, we give them the power that they have, not the other way around. So we are the true source of power in this government. An idea that we're probably all very familiar with, that we hear about a lot, is democracy. In the United States of America, we do use a democracy as our form of choosing electors and choosing who will represent us in government. What the word democracy means is very simple. It means rule by the people. There's 2 different kinds of democracy, though, so now we need to separate it to see which one we have and which one we don't have. The first type is direct democracy. This is where, like in that picture that you see in front of you, where people vote specifically on an issue. So we don't choose anybody to vote for us, we would vote on that issue. So for instance, in the state of Florida, in November this year, there's going to be on the ballot about medicinal marijuana. The citizens of Florida get to vote on that issue, so they get to directly vote on that issue. However, you probably realize that we don't vote on all the issues. That's why we have Congress. They vote on stuff for us. So one of the questions that comes to mind is, well, why doesn't the U.S. federal government use direct democracy? And when we think about it, there's definitely a lot of problems. For instance, we probably aren't informed enough to vote on everything. We don't have enough time to learn about all of those different topics. Additionally, there's too many of us. We have over 300 million people in this country, and for us to vote on everything would be too time consuming and nothing else would get done. So the best examples of direct democracy would probably be found in something like a town hall meeting. In smaller forms of government, it can be effective, but the United States is too large and people don't have enough information for direct democracy to work at a national or federal level. This is the type of democracy that we do have in the United States. We have a representative democracy, and this is where we choose people to represent us, and then they decide policy issues. So when people go to vote in November, they'll be voting for their representative, for their senator. In 2016, they'll be voting for who they want to be president. All of these people represent us is the idea. So we don't actually make all of the policies specifically. We go and vote for people who then make those policies for us. So we still have a choice, but rather than voting on the policies, we vote for people to represent us. An idea that goes right along with that is republic. Now, something I want to point out is that the United States, our form of government, is a republic. We are not a democracy. And to prove this, you can kind of think about the Pledge of Allegiance. If you think about Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. So the republic, that's the type of government that we have. And all it means, very simply, is that it is a representative form of government where people get to vote and choose people to represent them. So we have a republic. It's a very similar idea to representative democracy. So the question is raised, well, why did they create a republic instead of a democracy? And the basic idea, there's a couple answers to this. First of all, they feared mob rule. They feared that people would get together and they would vote on things, and that they would take advantage and strip the rights of minority groups, which definitely has happened in our history, but they wanted to limit this because they thought that having people represent us would be a more efficient way of governing. Additionally, they felt like the people weren't educated enough to be able to vote on things. They felt like people would get tricked, that they would see somebody who impressed them with good slogans and fancy words and things like that, and that they would follow them and follow bad leaders. So rather than giving people too much power, they decided to create a republic where we have representatives, but they make policy, not all of the people all of the time. Finally, we're going to answer the question in this video, who has the power in government? And there's two basic answers, actually a lot more than that, but there's two that we're going to focus on. One of the ideas is called the elitist theory. And when we think about elites, we're thinking about people who are at the top of whatever area it is of life that they're in. So we're thinking top corporate business leaders, people that are very wealthy, successful. Politically, people that are very powerful, like the president, like congressmen. Top of the military, generals, things like that. So we're thinking about people at the very top of our country. And according to the elitist theory, it says that those people, the wealthy, those with status, business, military, political leaders, that they are the ones who truly control the government. This is probably the less popular theory than the next one. The next theory is called the pluralist theory. It's answering the same question, who has the power in government? But according to the pluralist theory, it says there are many groups competing for power. No one group dominates. This is one that we talk about in Federalist number 10. James Madison would subscribe to this idea. Many groups competing for power, so as a result, no one group gets too powerful. And so we can think about that with our political parties. Democrats and Republicans are a good example of pluralism because we have two parties competing for power. Right now, the Democrats have the White House and the Senate, Republicans have the House. No one party is dominating our government. In the other picture, you can see a couple women there, and they have opposite signs about their opinion of abortion. Likely these women are from interest groups. And so again, with interest groups, we have lots and lots and lots of interest groups, and we'll talk about them a lot more later in the year. But you have where both sides are represented. You have the woman who wants to keep abortion legal on one side, and the woman who is opposing abortion as well. So neither one of those two groups dominates the politics in this country.